She was a loyal, pregnant wife until her millionaire husband tried to replace her with his mistress. Have you ever felt your entire world teeter on the edge of a betrayal so deep it threatened to shatter every promise you held dear? This is the story of Helena, a devoted wife, pregnant and determined to keep her family safe until she discovered her millionaire husband's dark secret. What seemed like a fairy tale marriage in their lavish penthouse, high above New York City, soon revealed cracks of decay no one could have anticipated. Now, locked in a battle for her dignity and unborn child's future, Helena must fight not just for her marriage, but for justice and for revenge. From the moment Helena first laid eyes on Christopher Davenport, she thought her life had been touched by destiny. Their meeting was pure serendipity at the Plaza Hotel in New York City, where her sister was hosting a charity gala. Christopher was a handsome man with an air of confidence about him, the kind that drew attention from everyone in the room. He moved effortlessly among the city's elite donors, artists, politicians, and yet, for some reason Helena couldn't fathom, he stopped at her side, offered her a champagne flute, and asked how she was enjoying the evening. Despite his sophistication and wealth, Christopher introduced himself in a friendly, almost modest way. "Call me Chris," he had said, even though his name regularly appeared on prestigious donors' lists, business columns, and was whispered among high society as the city's most eligible bachelor. Helena's life up to that point had been comfortable but simple. She was a fashion consultant working at a trendy boutique downtown and wasn't used to the glamour of black tie events at the plaza. Yet Christopher's genuine smile put her at ease. They spent the evening exchanging stories, from her passion for helping people find confidence in the clothes they wore to his experiences expanding a family business empire that specialized in real estate and luxury properties. There was electricity in the air, a pull that Helena couldn't fully describe. By the time midnight approached, she felt as though she had known this man her entire life. He made her laugh, and he made her blush, treating her as though she were the only woman in the grand ballroom. From that night on, their relationship blossomed at a breathtaking pace. Christopher courted Helena in the most romantic way imaginable. He whisked her away on spontaneous trips to France to scout out new business opportunities, though he always made sure to carve out time for them to dine by the Seine or stroll through the halls of the Louvre. He sent her bouquets of roses, so large they barely fit through the door of her modest apartment. He wrote her sweet, honest letters about his hopes for the future and his dreams of a warm, loving family. Before long, Helena believed with absolute conviction that Christopher was a man who treated her heart as carefully as he handled his own reputation. When Christopher proposed, it was during a private dinner at a chic rooftop restaurant overlooking Central Park. As he slipped an elegant diamond ring onto her finger, Helena felt her heart soar. The ring was classic, understated yet undeniably precious, much like how Christopher presented himself to the world. She accepted, tears in her eyes, whispering promises of forever. She thought it was the happiest she would ever be. Their wedding was a dazzling affair at the very place they first met, the Plaza Hotel. The grandeur matched Christopher's financial stature, but what Helena treasured most were the personal touches, a string quartet playing her grandmother's favorite waltz, candle-lit centerpieces with her mother's embroidered table runners, and a heartfelt speech from Christopher in which he described Helena as his guiding star, the compass directing him toward a more meaningful life. For Helena, it was more than just a wedding. It was the start of a dream come true. She fully believed she had married a man who valued loyalty, respect, and the sanctity of marriage. The money, the luxurious trips, the mansion in the heart of Manhattan, none of those were the core reason she said yes. She said yes because she believed in Christopher's heart and the goodness that shone in his eyes. In the early months of their marriage, that goodness seemed very real indeed. Christopher worked tirelessly, but always made sure to take Helena out to dinner on Friday nights, even if it was somewhere simple, like a neighborhood bistro. He frequently reminded her how much he adored her, and Helena felt safe, protected, and deeply loved. Every sign pointed to a happily ever after, one free from the usual drama that sometimes plagued powerful families and wealthy business magnates. That was until Helena discovered the truth about Christopher's ambitions and how he viewed marriage not as an unbreakable bond, but as a tool he could manipulate. It started with subtle changes, a flicker of impatience when Helena suggested they spend quality time at home, quiet phone calls at odd hours of the night, the discreet mention of a new female partner in his real estate ventures who seemed suspiciously ever-present. Helena's instinct was to trust her husband. She brushed off her concerns initially, thinking that a man of his stature was bound to have pressing business matters requiring confidentiality. She told herself that jealousy was beneath her. After all, Christopher had chosen her, the sweet, unassuming woman who worked in a boutique for love, not for status or convenience. Yet doubt crept in, and as the months rolled by, Helena would see the second face of Christopher Davenport, the aloof, cold businessman who cared more about sealing deals and maintaining an image than about honor or fidelity. The seeds of betrayal were slowly sown, though Helena was not yet fully aware. By the time she became pregnant with his child, a joyous event that she assumed would strengthen their bond, her husband had already begun weaving a web of secrets that would ensnare them both. It was the calm before the storm. The stage was set for a betrayal so profound it would test every ounce of Helena's dignity and faith in love. Little did she know, she was about to discover a side of Christopher she never imagined could exist. One that threatened not only her marriage, but the life growing inside her. In the third month of her pregnancy, Helena started to notice the subtle but alarming changes in Christopher's behavior. It wasn't that he was overtly cruel, he simply became distant. He left for work earlier and came home later, always armed with excuses about urgent business meetings with new partners, especially one named Victoria Belfort, who he described as a talented entrepreneur seeking to invest in his next real estate venture. At first, Helena took his praise of Victoria as normal business talk. She even suggested they invite this new partner for a dinner to celebrate their partnership, wanting to show her support. Christopher politely declined each time, saying Victoria's schedule was too hectic, or that Victoria was traveling abroad. Something didn't feel quite right, yet Helena struggled to pinpoint what was amiss. She chalked up most of Christopher's new behaviors to the demands of his career. However, cracks grew more visible by the day. Christopher showed a lack of interest in accompanying Helena to her prenatal appointments. When Helena reminded him of an upcoming ultrasound, he would sigh and check his calendar, only to say he'd try to make it, but couldn't guarantee. Once upon a time, Christopher would have moved mountains to be there for her for anything significant. Now, Helena found herself sitting alone in the Obgins waiting room, gently stroking her baby bump, forcing a smile when the doctor asked if the father was running late. She lied, saying Christopher had an emergency call. Each time she told herself that the next appointment would be different. But that next appointment came, and still Christopher was absent. Helena's emotional strain only grew. She began to feel that her pregnancy, a magical journey she dreamed of sharing with a loving partner, was turning into a solitary venture. Still, she tried to believe in Christopher's love. He had never outright lied to her before, and so she reasoned that maybe he really was swamped with more responsibilities. She attributed his distance to the burden he felt, expecting a child and wanting to secure financial stability for the new family member on the way. But there were other little things. She'd wake up in the middle of the night and find Christopher missing from their bed, only to discover him in his home office, speaking softly on the phone. When she tiptoed closer, she swore she heard the faint sound of a woman's laughter on the other line, causing him to hastily end the call. On other occasions, she observed him texting someone during their dinner, smiling at his phone with a look of delight she hadn't seen in a while. These suspicions gnawed at her. She tried to bring it up carefully, once asking, "Who were you talking to so late last night?" Christopher had given her a dismissive look. "Work," he replied curtly, as though that single word would quell all doubts. From the man who once wrote her long, heartfelt letters about how she saved him from a life of lonely ambition, Christopher now offered no reassurance, no empathy for her confusion. Something within Helena wanted to break free, to scream that this wasn't how marriage was supposed to be. Yet she found herself paralyzed by love, by her own fear of shattering the illusion that Christopher was still the man she married. Her only comfort was the child growing inside her. She felt flutters of movement by the end of her first trimester, and each time she placed her hand on her belly, she whispered sweet nothings to the baby. She vowed to be a good mother, no matter what storms might come. She wanted her child to grow up in a loving home with two supportive parents. So she persisted, clinging to the belief that Christopher was merely going through a rough patch in his business dealings. After all, no marriage was perfect, was it? But a nagging voice kept urging her to confront him more directly. She noticed financial statements arriving at the house, references to properties she had never heard about. Meanwhile, Christopher had begun attending events alone, claiming a business reason for excluding her. Where once she had been his elegant partner at every function, now he would say something about her needing rest due to the pregnancy, or that the event was strictly board members only. And so Helena found herself in a house that felt emptier and emptier by the day, the luxurious penthouse with its vaulted ceilings and breathtaking skyline views becoming more like a gilded cage. She occasionally invited her sister or close friend over for brunch, but her attempts at casual conversation always derailed into venting about Christopher's coldness. Her sister tried to console her, suggesting therapy or a heart-to-heart. Helena, though, was too scared to push him away even more. She held on to the faint hope that the problem would resolve itself once the baby was born. She could not have been more wrong. At the start of Helena's 5th month of pregnancy, an unexpected package arrived at the penthouse. Christopher was out, and Helena, curious, opened it without a second thought. Inside, she found documents and a set of photographs. Initially, she couldn't believe her eyes. The pictures showed Christopher with a strikingly beautiful brunette. They were exiting a restaurant, laughing as they held hands, and in another picture, their faces were close, dangerously close. In fact, one shot captured them sharing what appeared to be a kiss. Her heart hammered in her chest. She felt dizzy, nearly dropping the photographs. Who had sent these? Why were they here? She rummaged through the attached documents and found legal filings related to a property Christopher had purchased in the Hamptons Co., signed by Victoria Belfort. In the corner of one of the documents, she found a handwritten note that read, "You deserve to know who your husband truly is." Signed, a friend. Helena stumbled into the living room, pictures in hand, tears threatening to spill. In her mind, she replayed every suspicious moment, every distant glance, every lame excuse, and realized that she had been desperately ignoring the glaring truth. Her husband, her Christopher, he was cheating on her. Rage, betrayal, disbelief, heartbreak, all these emotions crashed over her in a tidal wave, leaving her shaking, hugging her belly protectively as if to shield the life inside from the ugliness of the outside world. She wanted to call Christopher immediately and demand an explanation, yet some instinct told her to wait, to calm down, to gather more evidence if needed. Or perhaps she was just too terrified to face him with these photos in hand. terrified of hearing him confirm her worst fears. Unsure of her next step, Helena locked the documents away in a safe box, praying for clarity to do the right thing. When Christopher returned that evening, Helena observed him like a stranger. He gave her a polite peck on the cheek, said he was tired, and retreated to his study. She followed him quietly, heart pounding as if it might burst through her ribcage. With photos seared into her mind, she mustered the strength to knock on the door, telling herself that she needed to confront this head-on. Inside, Christopher sat at his desk, reading through some contracts with a nonchalant expression. She approached, her voice trembling. "Chris, we need to talk." He didn't look up. "Is it urgent?" "I'm in the middle of something." Fury flared in her chest. "Yes, it's urgent," she said more firmly. "I received some interesting photographs today." His head jerked up, eyes narrowed. "Photographs?" Helena stood her ground. "Of you, with another woman, Victoria Belfort, I assume." Her voice quivered, but she forced herself to continue. "They showed you two kissing, holding hands." For a split second, Christopher's carefully maintained facade cracked. A flicker of panic crossed his face, then vanished. He exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. "I see someone's playing a cruel game by sending you those." Helena gaped, unbelieving. "You're not even going to deny it?" He closed his eyes, let out a frustrated breath. "I'm sorry, Helena, but I am not going to lie to you. There's nothing left to deny." His candor left her stunned. Her voice caught in her throat. She pressed a hand to her belly and asked in a trembling whisper, "Why?" "We're married. We're expecting a child." He steepled his fingers, eyeing her with a chilling calm that shattered her illusions. "I'm a businessman, Helena, and sometimes personal relationships aren't enough. Victoria's father is a powerful investor in Europe. Our partnership can elevate the Davenport name globally. She's become more than a business partner, I admit that." Her shoulders shook, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I loved you. I still love you. Does that mean nothing to you?" Christopher stood, stepping around his desk. He reached for Helena's arm, but she jerked away. With a sigh, he said, "I will always respect you, Helena, and I am grateful for what we shared. But sometimes life has different plans." "Different plans?" Her voice rose, thick with betrayal. "You have a wife and a child on the way." He spoke with unsettling composure. "That child will be well provided for, Helena. I'm not denying my responsibilities. But the future I envision requires a partner who fully understands the intricacies of these business alliances. Victoria is that partner. We see eye to eye on everything from corporate expansions to philanthropic endeavors that boost our public image." Helena trembled with anger. "Public image? That's what you care about?" He answered her with a thin smile. "It's what I must care about. It's how I protect the Davenport legacy. Our marriage was beautiful, but it was built on emotion, Helena. Love, while lovely, doesn't always stand up to the demands of the real world." She stared at him, heart pounding in disbelief. "You make it sound like love is worthless." He shrugged. "It isn't worthless. It's just not always enough." He paused for a moment, glancing at her pregnant belly. "You'll be taken care of, Helena. I can arrange a generous settlement. We can do this quietly, avoiding a media circus. In return, I'll ensure you and the baby never want for anything." But Victoria and I, we planned to move forward. A wave of nausea washed over Helena. She couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. The man who had once promised a lifetime of devotion was proposing a silent departure from the marriage for the sake of his new business arrangement. She felt the urge to scream, to throw something, to lash out with all the pain lodged in her chest. Instead, she forced herself to stand tall, tears still streaming down her cheeks. "You're a monster," she whispered. "I can't believe I ever loved you." Christopher's eyes turned cold. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but let's be civilized about this." You deserve a comfortable life, Helena. Don't make things more difficult by dragging emotions into a purely pragmatic situation. She spat back. This is far from purely pragmatic. You're toying with people's lives, my life, our child's life, for the sake of your precious image. He gave a half shrug, as though her words were inconsequential. The sooner you realize what's best for everyone, the sooner we can finalize this without conflict. Helena, grief and fury twisting inside her, turned on her heel and stormed out. She could hear him picking up the phone as she left, perhaps to call Victoria, or maybe his lawyers. She felt an overwhelming need to protect herself and her unborn baby. Whatever illusions she had about her perfect marriage were gone. She had to face the cold, ugly reality. Christopher's betrayal was complete, and he expected her to step aside quietly. He wanted to replace her, but Helena Davenport was not about to fade into the background. She was done letting Christopher's manipulations define her life. She wiped away her tears, feeling a resolve begin to crystallize within her. If he thought she would bow gracefully out of the spotlight, he was mistaken. She carried not just her broken heart, but the life of their child, and that gave her a strength she never knew she possessed. In the days following that disastrous confrontation, Helena found herself grappling with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to crumble into despair, to cry until no tears were left. Another part burned with the desire to fight back, to show Christopher that he couldn't toss her aside like an old business asset. And one unassailable truth guided her actions. She had to protect her unborn child, both financially and emotionally, from Christopher's cold sense of pragmatism. Her first move was to contact a lawyer, a strong, no-nonsense litigator named Meredith Chang, highly recommended by Helena's sister. Meredith listened intently to Helena's story, taking notes as Helena recounted how Christopher wanted to replace her with his mistress, how he barely showed any remorse, and how he was offering her a generous settlement under the condition she keep quiet. Meredith pursed her lips. "Typical high-net-worth matrimonial scenario," she remarked, setting her pen down. "Men like Christopher often believe they can simply pay their wives to disappear. But New York law is pretty clear that you have rights, significant rights, especially as you are carrying his child." Helena took a shaky breath, relief sweeping over her. "I don't want to be vindictive just for the sake of it, but I can't let him walk all over me, especially not when there's a baby in the picture." Meredith nodded. "I understand. We'll prepare for a divorce proceeding if that's what you want, or we can prepare a robust separation agreement that ensures your interests and the babies are protected. But we might need leverage, given how influential Christopher is in society. Do you have any evidence of his affair or any documentation?" Helena hesitated for a moment, then fished out the manila envelope from her tote bag. "I have these photographs and documents tying him financially to Victoria. Also, there's a note from an anonymous sender, though I doubt that alone will hold weight in court." The lawyer examined the photos and documents with a discerning eye. "These are quite explicit. It would be enough to suggest adultery in a fault-based divorce case. As for the note, it may not be crucial, but it's good to keep everything. Considering Christopher's reputation, he'll want to avoid a public scandal, which puts the ball in our court. Don't worry, Helena. We'll do everything we can to secure your future." That night, Helena confronted Christopher again. She waited for him in the living room, arms folded, eyes cold. He strode in, a tired scowl on his face. "What is it now, Helena? I told you, we can settle this quietly." She straightened her spine. "Yes, I've spoken to a lawyer. We'll be dealing with this legally. I'm not just stepping aside so you can parade around with Victoria and pretend I never existed." He let out a sardonic laugh, tossing his coat onto a nearby chair. "If that's what you want, Helena, Just know I can outspend you in court. You really want to go public with all this?" Her expression hardened. "I won't be bullied." Christopher studied her for a moment, noticing the defiance in her eyes that wasn't there before. "Fine," he said coolly, "have your legal crusade, but don't think you can ruin my image so easily. I'm well connected. I'll make sure you're painted as the melodramatic wife who couldn't handle the pressures of high society. But if you behave, I'll ensure you still get a decent settlement and comfortable life." She let his insults wash over her. "Keep your hush money, Christopher. I'm not doing this for profit. I'm doing it for my child." With that, she turned away and went to her bedroom, ignoring his parting glare. In the following weeks, Helena put her plan into motion. She gathered all financial records she could, from tax returns to property deeds, especially ones signed during the period of her marriage. She knew Christopher's net worth was astronomical. A portion of that rightfully belonged to her and, more importantly, would secure their child's future. Meanwhile, Christopher carried on as though nothing was amiss, continuing to see Victoria in public spaces, even dining at lavish restaurants where paparazzi occasionally lingered. The press had yet to catch wind of the affair. Christopher's people were adept at covering up paparazzi leads, but rumors trickled in among the social elite. Helena's phone began buzzing with calls from curious acquaintances. "Are you two still together? I heard gossip about him and some investor's daughter." She brushed off inquiries, protecting her pride. One day, out of the blue, Helena received a text from an unknown number. "I have more information that can help you if you want it. Meet me at Café Lux on 40 Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. A friend." Her heart raced as she read it. She recalled the note that accompanied the incriminating pictures had been signed the same way. Could this be the same person? The one secretly sending her evidence against Christopher? The next day, Helena arrived at Café Lux, a popular upscale coffee spot near Grand Central Terminal. She took a seat by the window, scanning the crowd nervously. A few minutes passed, and then a slim, older man in a well-tailored suit approached her table. "Helena Davenport?" he asked quietly. She recognized him slightly. He was Henry, Christopher's long-time personal assistant. Her pulse quickened. "Henry," she managed. "What are you doing here?" He seated himself, looking around cautiously. "I was the one who sent you the photographs and documents," he confessed. His voice hushed. "I didn't want you to live in ignorance. You deserve better than that." Helena's mouth fell open. "But why? You've worked for Christopher for years. You've always been loyal to him." He lowered his gaze. "I've been loyal, yes. But there's a difference between loyalty and complicity in doing something cruel. I've witnessed Mr. Davenport's affairs before, even helped cover them up. It never sat right with me, but this time it felt different. You're pregnant, Helena. And the way he's pushing you aside, I can't be part of that." Tears welled in Helena's eyes, not just from sadness, but from a sense of gratitude. "Thank you. I appreciate this." "But what more could you have?" Henry pulled out a small USB drive from his pocket. Documents, emails, text exchanges. Evidence that Christopher has been planning to manipulate the market with Victoria's father, forging a massive real estate monopoly. I also have proof that he started plotting how to ensure you walk away with minimal claims to his wealth. All the steps are outlined. I couldn't stand by anymore. Helena's hands shook as she accepted the USB. "This is risky for you, Henry. Christopher, he's ruthless." Henry managed a sad smile. "I'm aware. He'll likely fire me, maybe blackball me from the industry, but I believe in doing what's right at least once. Use it wisely, Helena. Don't let him railroad you." She placed her hand over his, tears brimming. "I won't forget your kindness. Thank you." After Henry left, Helena clutched the USB drive tightly. She felt a renewed sense of resolve. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore, or even about securing financial stability for her child. Christopher was engaging in potentially illegal business practices with Victoria's family, ignoring moral and ethical lines, all while seeking to displace his pregnant wife. That was more than infidelity, it was a violation of law, trust, and decency. That evening, Helena handed the USB to her lawyer, Meredith, who scanned its contents with widened eyes. "There's enough here to blow Christopher's reputation sky high," Meredith said, mouth agape. Emails about property price manipulation, text messages referencing hush money for insiders, forging environmental clearances. My God, he could face federal scrutiny with these. The divorce is the least of his worries if this gets out. A sense of grim satisfaction filled Helena. She never imagined she would be put in such a position, but if Christopher insisted on discarding her like worthless property, she would fight back, not only for herself and her unborn child, but for the principle that he shouldn't get away with destroying lives in pursuit of power. Meredith counseled her carefully. "We have to be strategic. If we just release this information to the public, Christopher will come after you with everything he's got. Also, we need to consider how best to use it in the divorce proceeding. If you show him that you have evidence of his wrongdoing, he might be more willing to settle on your terms to avoid bigger scandals or legal troubles. But we need to be prepared for the blowback." Helena nodded, her lips set in a firm line. "Do whatever you need to do, Meredith. I'm done being the passive wife. I want a fair settlement, full custody, or at least primary custody of my child. And I want the world to know what he's done if he tries to push me around any further." Thus, the stage was set for a high-stakes conflict, with Helena wielding powerful evidence of Christopher's corruption. Little did she realize that her quest for justice would soon spiral into even more turmoil, forcing her to confront not just her husband, but the cunning mistress who sought to take her place. Victoria Belfort was nothing short of brazen when it came to her affair with Christopher Davenport. She was a woman used to getting what she wanted, whether in the boardroom or the bedroom. After all, she'd grown up in a wealthy European family renowned for strategic deals and cunning business moves. For her, seducing Christopher was another kind of transaction, one that would grant her influence in the US real estate market. So it didn't surprise Helena one bit when, out of the blue, she received a phone call from Victoria herself. The nerve of the woman astonished her. "Hello?" Helena said warily. A cool, smooth voice purred on the other end. "Helena, darling, I hope you're well. This is Victoria Belfort. I believe you've heard my name." Helena's hand tightened on the phone. "I have. And I don't see why you're calling me." Victoria let out a tinkling laugh. "I'm calling because I think we should talk. Woman to woman. Let's meet for lunch, shall we? I'm at the Polo Bar near Fifth Avenue. Join me, if you please. I'll be waiting." Before Helena could respond, Victoria ended the call. She stared at the phone, incredulous. The audacity was overwhelming. Was Victoria trying to taunt her, or did she have some ulterior motive? After several minutes of deliberation, Helena decided to go. She refused to let the mistress have the final word without hearing what she had to say. Helena wanted to look Victoria in the eye, to see this woman who dared attempt to erase her from Christopher's life. The Polo Bar was an upscale establishment beloved by society elites. Helena walked in, heart pounding, scanning for Victoria. She spotted her immediately, a tall brunette with a model's poise, wearing a designer dress that likely cost more than a year's rent for many people. Victoria waved her over, flashing a dazzling smile. Helena took a seat. She refused to let her trembling nerves show. She wanted to be strong, confident. Victoria sipped a glass of sparkling water, her well-manicured nails tapping lightly on the stem of the glass. "I ordered a bottle of San Pellegrino for us. I assume you're not drinking any champagne these days." Helena ignored the jab at her pregnancy and responded politely, "Thank you." "Now, why am I here?" Victoria placed the glass down, folding her hands elegantly. "Because you deserve to hear the truth from me as well. I'm aware Christopher has spoken to you about our relationship, but I want to ensure you understand the bigger picture." Helena arched an eyebrow. "The bigger picture that you're sleeping with a married man who also happens to be the father of my child." Victoria inclined her head, unruffled. "Yes, well, details. Look, Helena, you and Christopher had something nice, I'm sure, but times change. Christopher is positioning himself for a level of influence you can't even imagine. My family is instrumental to that. Frankly, your presence in his life no longer makes sense from a business standpoint." Helena felt rage simmer. She forced herself to speak calmly. "How dare you talk about marriage as if it's a disposable contract?" Victoria shrugged. "I come from a world where alliances matter more than vows. Marriage is a strategic move, like forging a partnership. Christopher understands that." "Perhaps you do not." Helena narrowed her eyes. "You're mistaken if you think I'll just step aside. Christopher and I are still legally married. I'm carrying his child." A small smile tugged at Victoria's lips. "Yes, and he'll ensure your child is taken care of. But Christopher and I have more pressing concerns. We're dealing with multi-million-dollar expansions. We can't afford the scandal of a messy divorce that drags on." She reached into her designer clutch and pulled out a folded paper. "Hence, I have a proposition for you." Helena eyed the paper warily. "Proposition?" Victoria slid it across the table. "Sign this mutual separation agreement. Christopher will pay you a lump sum, very substantial. You'll receive child support, but you'll no longer be a Davenport. You'll quietly fade from the social and legal sphere." Helena stared, disbelief mingling with fury. She refused to pick up the paper. "You think I can be bought so easily?" Victoria's condescending smile grew. "Everyone has a price, and I'm offering you a generous one. Look, do you want to spend the next few years bogged down in court battles you can't possibly win? Christopher's lawyers are the best in the business. Or do you want to walk away now financially secure, your child's future guaranteed?" Helena drew in a sharp breath. She thought about the USB drive in her lawyer's possession evidence that could destroy Christopher's empire, not to mention implicate Victoria's family. She found a strange calm settle over her. "What if I told you I'm not afraid of a legal fight, that I have my own resources?" Victoria let out a lilting laugh. "Is that so?" "Pardon me, darling, but you're just a boutique clerk who married into wealth. What resources do you possibly have that we can't bury with a few $1 million and well-connected friends?" At that, Helena let a small, secretive smile curl her lips. "Victoria, you underestimate me. Even a boutique clerk can learn a thing or two in the circles Christopher moves in. There are ways to ensure he and your dear father face complications if you push me too far." Victoria's eyes flashed with a flicker of confusion, maybe fear, but she recovered quickly. "Empty threats won't help you, dear. Don't let pride ruin your chance for a peaceful resolution." A wave of adrenaline coursed through Helena as she stood. She refused to be cowed, refused to let Victoria's belittling words reduce her to tears. "Let me be clear. I will not sign your dirty little contract, and I will not be thrown away like a piece of garbage. If Christopher wants a divorce, he can meet me in court, and he can explain to a judge and the world why he's discarding his pregnant wife for a mistress with shady business dealings." For the first time, Victoria's suave veneer cracked. Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowed. She was clearly not used to being defied. "You'll regret this, Helena," she hissed. "We can make your life very difficult." Helena picked up her purse, meeting Victoria's gaze without flinching. "You've already made my life difficult by stealing my husband. There's not much worse you can do. Good day, Miss Belfort." With that, she walked out of the restaurant, trembling from the confrontation yet feeling a surge of empowerment. Little did Helena know, Victoria Belfort was hardly one to take no for an answer. While Helena believed she had gained the upper hand, Victoria was already plotting her next move, one that would escalate the battle to a dangerous level. Within a week of Helena's tense luncheon with Victoria, strange things began happening. First, Helena's usual route to her obstetrician's office felt suspiciously monitored. She'd spot a black SUV idling across the street. When she moved, it moved. She dismissed it at first as paranoia, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't leave her. Next came a slew of anonymous calls to Helena's phone. Some were silent, others filled with static. And then she received threatening messages. Don't be foolish. Accept the settlement. You don't know who you're dealing with. Helena suspected it was Victoria's doing, perhaps Christopher's, or both. The intimidation tactics confirmed that they were afraid of what she might do with the incriminating evidence Henry had given her. She confided in Meredith, who advised her to document everything. Meredith also helped Helena secure a restraining order, though the process took time. Meanwhile, Helena found her stress levels skyrocketing. Being heavily pregnant, she worried about the toll all this anxiety was taking on her health. But she refused to cave. She avoided going out alone. Her sister came to stay with her in the penthouse, offering comfort and support. One evening, Helena was startled by a banging on her front door. She peered through the peephole, heart racing, only to see Christopher standing there, his expression grim. Her sister, alarmed, insisted Helena not open it. But Helena, steeling her resolve, unlatched the door chain and stepped back. Christopher entered, eyeing her sister dismissively. "We need to talk," he said, voice taut with anger. Helena folded her arms protectively over her growing belly. "What about?" He thrust his phone toward her, a news article displayed on the screen. She skimmed it, reading allegations of illegal property deals, rumor of corruption involving Davenport Enterprises. The article cited anonymous sources but clearly implicated Christopher and hinted at involvement with European investors, likely Victoria's father. "How did this get out?" Christopher demanded, voice cold. Helena handed the phone back with a shrug. "I have no idea." His eyes flashed. "Don't play dumb. I'm sure it's your doing." Helena's sister interjected. "Excuse me, Christopher. My sister has been through enough. Don't you dare barge in here and accuse her." Christopher ignored her, stepping closer to Helena. She noticed the faint smell of expensive cologne and felt a pang of nostalgia for the time when she found comfort in that scent. Now it just reminded her of betrayal. "Helena," he said slowly, "this is bigger than you realize. If word spreads of illegal activity, the federal authorities could investigate. That alone could bankrupt Davenport Enterprises, not to mention Victoria's father's holdings. You want to bring that upon yourself? The father of your child?" Helena swallowed hard. "I didn't leak anything, Christopher. But maybe you should have thought about the consequences before you broke the law," he scoffed. "So you admit you have damaging evidence?" She stood tall. "Yes, I do. And if you and Victoria keep threatening me, I won't hesitate to share every detail with the authorities." Christopher's composure faltered for a fraction of a second. Then he sighed, raking a hand through his hair. "This is insanity. The child you're carrying, my child, will suffer if our business crumbles. Do you really want that?" A mix of anger and desperation bubbled inside Helena. "You didn't think about that when you betrayed me, when you tried to bribe me into silence and threatened me through your mistress. Don't pretend to be concerned about our baby now." He glared at her, then turned on his heel and strode toward the door. "Have it your way. But don't say I didn't warn you when the authorities come knocking at your door too, asking questions." "Let them come," Helena called after him, slamming the door shut. She turned to her sister, who put a comforting arm around her. Helena pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling the baby move. She whispered, "It'll be okay. I won't let him scare me. But that night, Helena couldn't shake the feeling of dread. She realized Christopher might fight harder, resorting to uglier tactics if he felt cornered. And Victoria, she was even more ruthless, a woman who had grown up learning how to wield money and influence like a sword. Things escalated further when, one morning, Helena's sister found a large envelope wedged under the penthouse door. Inside was a letter typed in bold, threatening words, telling Helena to drop the legal nonsense and reminding her that accidents could happen. Enclosed were pictures of her sister walking down the street, Helena's mother visiting from out of town, and a shot of Helena herself leaving the doctor's office. It was a blatant intimidation tactic, one that chilled Helena to the bone. She clutched the photos with trembling fingers, tears in her eyes. "They're threatening my family now," she whispered, voice trembling. Her sister cursed under her breath. "We should take this to the police, Helena." They brought the photos and letter to the precinct, filing a report. Yet, the investigating officer gave them a polite but non-committal response. With Christopher and Victoria's deep pockets, it wasn't surprising that official channels might be slow to pursue. Despite the restraining order, there was no direct proof linking them to these threats. All Helena could do was document and hope it would strengthen her case if things escalated to court. The tension proved too much for her mother, who worried ceaselessly about Helena's health, urging her to let it go, to just walk away with the settlement money. But Helena was resolute. She refused to be bullied into silence. She grew determined to see this fight through, no matter the cost, partly for her baby, partly to show that she couldn't be replaced so easily, and partly out of a need to stand up for all the times she'd been mistreated. All the while, Helena's lawyers were building a strong case for divorce, citing fault on grounds of adultery and emotional cruelty. They also prepared to countersue if Christopher dared to drag her through the legal mud. With the digital evidence of potential illegal activity, Helena had a powerful trump card. The question was, how far would Christopher and Victoria go to ensure that card never made it to court? Over the next few days, Helena felt trapped in a whirlwind of lawyers' letters, veiled threats, and her own mounting stress. She realized Christopher would never negotiate fairly unless she forced his hand, and she had exactly what she needed to do it. Armed with Henry's damning USB drive, Helena and her lawyer, Meredith, requested a face-to-face meeting with Christopher's team at a neutral law office. The conference room was tense from the start. Christopher arrived with a fleet of attorneys, exuding an air of entitlement. Helena sat across from him, trying to steady her nerves as Meredith began outlining the terms for a divorce settlement. Christopher's lawyers tried dismissing her demands until Meredith quietly opened her laptop, revealing the incriminating evidence, emails, text messages, and business files linking Christopher to illegal dealings with Victoria's family. A hush fell. Christopher stiffened, realizing how deadly this information could be if made public. His lawyers scrambled to regain footing, but Helena and Meredith stood firm. They wanted a significant financial settlement, a trust fund for the unborn child, coverage of medical expenses, and custody on Helena's terms. If Christopher refused, Helena would have every reason to file the evidence in open court. Christopher, his arrogance shaken, accused her of blackmail. Meredith calmly reminded him it was leverage, a legitimate part of any high-stakes negotiation. Trapped by his own misconduct, Christopher had little choice. Tension crackled as he glanced from the screen to Helena's resolute expression. Finally, he muttered that he needed time to review code for conceding he was cornered. As Helena walked out with Meredith, she felt triumph and dread in equal measure. The storm would only intensify. But she had shown Christopher Davenport and herself that she was no longer a woman he could replace. Silence or destroy. The trap was set. All that remained was to see if Christopher would take his last chance to settle, or risk losing everything. The following day, Helena was resting at home when her phone pinged with an urgent text from an unknown number. "Turn on the news, Channel 6. Now, frowning, she grabbed the remote and flipped to Channel 6. Her heart skipped a beat at the headline, crawling across the screen. Breaking news: Victoria Belfort arrested in connection to fraud and tax evasion. A news anchor elaborated that Victoria Belfort had been taken into custody after federal agents raided her Manhattan office, seizing files related to an investigation into illicit overseas transactions. Her father was also under investigation. Panic flickered through Helena as she wondered if Christopher was implicated as well. Moments later, another flash of breaking news: Davenport Enterprises under federal scrutiny. CEO Christopher Davenport subpoenaed for questioning. Helena nearly dropped the remote. The anchor went on to say that an anonymous whistleblower had come forward with extensive evidence linking Davenport Enterprises to a ring of fraudulent real estate dealings. She realized that Henry, or someone else who possessed duplicates of her evidence, must have gone straight to the authorities, perhaps to protect themselves. Or perhaps Christopher's house of cards was simply collapsing from all angles. Regardless, the news spread like wildfire. The phone rang Meredith. Helena answered, her hand shaking. "Meredith, what's happening?" Meredith's voice crackled with excitement. "It seems Christopher's biggest fear has come to pass. The feds are investigating him, big time. With Victoria arrested, the scandal is unstoppable now. Our case against Christopher just got stronger. He'll be desperate to settle. But what if he blames me?" Helena asked, heart pounding. Meredith paused. "He might. But now that the cat's out of the bag, there's not much he can do to stop it. He has bigger problems than your divorce settlement. The best thing for us is to finalize your agreement before his assets get frozen or seized." Sure enough, within hours, Helena received a frantic call from Christopher's attorney, who offered to meet all of her demands if she would just sign a confidentiality clause about the business side of things. Helena, sensing victory, agreed to partial confidentiality regarding the intricacies of Davenport Enterprises, but insisted on retaining her right to speak about the affair if she chose. The attorneys hammered out details in a marathon session of phone calls and emails. Christopher, meanwhile, was nowhere to be seen. Rumor had it he was in and out of high-level meetings with his crisis management team, desperately trying to contain the fallout. News outlets reported that the SEC was combing through Davenport Enterprises transactions. Shareholders panicked. The stock value plummeted, and Christopher's once untouchable empire tottered on the brink of collapse. Even more shocking, Victoria Belfort turned on Christopher, offering to cooperate with federal investigators in exchange for leniency. She claimed Christopher was the mastermind behind many of the illegal schemes, and that she was merely following his lead. Whether it was true or not, the public devoured every headline, hungry for scandal among the rich and powerful. As the dust settled, Helena finalized her divorce settlement, ensuring a substantial financial package and a trust fund for her unborn child. She secured legal custody, with Christopher's visitation rights contingent on sobriety in the event he developed a substance problem and good conduct. The day she signed the documents, she felt a sense of closure wash over her, tempered by lingering sadness for the man she once believed Christopher to be. Yet Karma's hand was not finished. Not long after, Christopher found himself indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, among others. While he posted bail to avoid jail time, his reputation was in shreds. Media outlets hounded him relentlessly, painting him as a symbol of unchecked greed. Socialites who once flocked to his lavish events now avoided him like a plague. The mighty had fallen, and fallen hard. Helena watched the news coverage with a complicated mix of relief and pity. She didn't revel in his downfall. She remembered the Christopher she had once loved, the man who wrote her tender letters and promised her the world. Yet the fact that he was capable of discarding her, threatening her, and endangering their child spoke volumes. Perhaps in the end, he had always been this ruthless, and she had simply been too blinded by love to see it. With her divorce settled and Christopher facing legal battles that could drag on for years, Helena found herself at a crossroads. She was a soon-to-be single mother, newly wealthy, but emotionally drained. The thought of stepping back into the fashion world appealed to her, but she had to prioritize her health and the safety of her child. She moved out of the penthouse, unwilling to linger in a space haunted by bitter memories. She purchased a smaller but comfortable townhouse in a quieter neighborhood, one that offered privacy and peace. She set up the baby's nursery with gentle pastel decor, letting herself feel excitement for the new life she carried. The media, of course, clamored for an interview everyone wanted to hear from the pregnant ex-wife of Christopher Davenport. But Helena, under advisement from Meredith, declined most requests. She was determined to shield her baby from the tabloids. Though she wasn't gagged about the affair, she also didn't care to sensationalize her trauma. She focused on healing, on preparing to bring her child into the world with hope rather than bitterness. Her sister helped her shop for baby essentials, laughing with her as they tested strollers and onesies. Her mother visited often, fussing over her diet and pressing her to rest. Slowly, Helena found that the wound in her heart began to mend. She recognized how strong she had become in the face of betrayal, how she had fought back against bullying tactics and refused to settle for less than she deserved. About a month before her due date, she received an unexpected note, a short, handwritten letter delivered by courier. She opened it cautiously, half expecting another threat. Instead it read, "Helena, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I wanted to apologize. Not for the business matters. I made my choices and must face the consequences, but for hurting you. You deserved better, and I failed you. I hope you can find it in your heart to raise our child without resentment toward me. When the time comes, I hope I can be some part of their life." Christopher. Helena folded the letter, tears pricking her eyes. She wasn't sure if his apology was genuine or a ploy to elicit sympathy, but it didn't really matter. She had moved on. She had her settlement, her independence, and her self-respect. She would focus on bringing her baby into a world of warmth and kindness, a stark contrast to the cold ambition that had destroyed Christopher. Thank you for joining me on Helena's tumultuous journey, a tale of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately the triumph of a brave woman who refused to be silenced. Helena faced unimaginable challenges: a husband who was willing to trade love for power, a ruthless mistress eager to edge her out, and the forces of corruption threatening to consume her. Yet she fought back piece by piece, harnessing her courage and love for her unborn child to stand firm. In the end, karma struck with decisive force, leaving those who schemed in disgrace, while Helena rose from the ashes, stronger than ever. If you found Helena's story inspiring and full of drama, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with others who might need a reminder of the power of perseverance, and subscribe to this channel for more incredible stories. Your support helps ensure we can continue bringing you tales that uplift, intrigue, and captivate. Thank you for watching, and stay strong.